bigness implies absence of both smallness and bigness. Because even that which you will label as big will only be comparatively, relatively big. So it can become small any day. You can have a huge self-worth, but then someday an incident can happen, or you may come across someone who exceeds you on all your benchmarks. Then again your self-constructed bigness will turn into smallness. When you call something as big, it is never big enough. It is only relatively big to something else. Hence, when you call something as small, it is obviously small, and even when you call something as big, it is always in danger of showing up as small. So small is small, and even big is small. Real bigness is neither smallness nor bigness. Real bigness means I do not look at myself. To call yourself as big is to insult yourself. Do you know anything absolute? Do you know anything that you label as small or big or whatever without a criteria, a benchmark? On your little benchmarks, on your pretty criteria, if you call something as big, is it really big? A kid may look at a large horse one day and call it, oh, it's really big. It's a matter of who you are. It's a matter of, hence, what your criteria are. If you are a kid, even a horse is quite big for you, because your criteria themselves are petty. This bigness of the horse is always in danger of being eclipsed by something relatively bigger than the horse. One day he goes and looks at an elephant. The big turns into small. The child keeps growing up. One day he goes and finds a mountain. The big elephant becomes puny. That's why on your own personal criteria, calling yourself as even big is an invitation to smallness. Because your criteria themselves are only as small, only as big as you are. Are you sure your criteria are not going to evolve, not going to grow? Real bigness is bigness sans criteria. Real bigness is bigness sans a measuring tape, which means it is not bigness at all in the conventional sense of the word. It is not a bigness that you call as big because it is measurably big. It is not a bigness that you call as big because it is big compared to the small. It is a bigness that you call as big because it is unfathomable, immeasurable. You do not know where it starts and where it ends. It contains all measuring tapes, so you do not know where to place the end of your measuring tape. Do you get it? It is a very common misconception that spirituality teaches you to think big about yourself. No, not at all. That is what modern self-help does. That is what motivational authors do. They keep on telling you that you are not small, that you are big, you are powerful, you are capable. Spirituality does not tell you that you are powerful or capable or big. It tells you that you are not someone you can take stock of. You are not someone who can be analyzed, measured, touched, thought of, named. You are beyond. But this beyondness is not attractive to the ego. Bigness is attractive to the ego. If you are told that you are beyond measurement, you won't be too pleased. You want some number. You want a big number. If you are told that you are beyond measurement, you won't be too pleased. But if you are told that your measurement is quite big, that would please you. That's what sham spirituality does. It tells you to abjure your smallness in favor of your bigness. That is false. Because no bigness, I repeat, is big enough. Today you may think of yourself, imagine yourself, motivate yourself as large. Tomorrow situations will again show you to be only situationally large. And situationally large is situationally small. You might be the king of a great city. Someday, somewhere, there would be a king bigger than you. You might be holding a world record today, and nobody might have matched you in the entire history till now. But tomorrow someone would arise who would shatter your record. So you can never be in peace that you are really big. If the past and present are not threatening you, the future anyway is always a threat. You can never be in total assurance of your bigness. The future may show that you are so small. So don't try to be convinced of your bigness. Don't try to be convinced of your smallness either. Spirituality is just about not being convinced of anything about yourself. You are the one about whom nothing can be said. So there is no question of conviction. Of course you are not small, but you are not big either, which means you are free to be big and small, which means neither smallness can threaten you nor bigness can tempt you, which means you don't need to lie and manipulate, which means you can very comfortably accept your pettiness wherever you see it, because no pettiness can anyway be a remark upon your being. Which means you are free to play this game. Which means you are free to be defeated as equally as you are free to win. That freedom is bigness, real bigness. Spirituality is not about feeling upright and uptight in face of an adverse appraisal by your assessing manager. Spirituality is not to be used for these petty purposes. For these petty purposes, you can go to some motivational guru. My manager is not giving me any appraisal beyond 7 out of 10. And I am feeling let down. How do I pep myself up? For this, there are motivational bestsellers. Too many of them are circulating in the market. They are like drugs. When you feel depressed, you take them and you will find yourself a little peppy for a while. Do you understand the meaning of really being awesome? You are so awesome that nobody knows, including yourself, how awesome you are. This not knowing is very central to your awesomeness. Not knowing. If you know how awesome you are, how awesome are you? Because if you can know something, you have limited it, have you not? A thing is awesome only when it is unending. That is why God is awesome. That is why real love is awesome. It must never end. If you know how awesome you are, then you have known the end of awesomeness. To come to the end of something is to find that that something is quite small. Your awesomeness lies in your immensity. And that immensity is not an immensity that can be put down on paper. No figure can capture it. Which means that you are free to be in trouble. Which means you are free to be wallowing in the dirt. Which means you are free to be down in the dumps. Your awesomeness remains untouched by your situations. That is what is meant by real awesomeness. Real awesomeness is not about performing wonderfully in your corporation. Real awesomeness is not about looking good or doing better than everybody else. Real awesomeness is not about rising like a phoenix in the face of severe defeats and then inflicting mortal blows upon the enemy. Real awesomeness is not a Hollywood blockbuster. Real awesomeness is extremely subtle. Real awesomeness is to be awesome even when you are a flop. Are you getting it? Don't start using spirituality as the other end of duality, the first end of which is morbid depression. Our lives are lives of morbid depression. And to counterweigh that, we bring in spirituality. We use spirituality as a motivating pill. We use spirituality as some kind of divine inspiration. Spirituality is not that. Spirituality is raw truth. You cannot use it for your personal purposes. The truth is quite unusable, just as empty space is not usable. In this space, you are using the chair, you are using the air, you are using all the stuff that is there. But nobody ever used space. But then no use is possible without space. That is real awesomeness. To not to be usable, yet contain the alpha and the omega of all uses. Getting it? Just too many are there who would say Aham Brahmasmi because they do not want to feel nervous on their first date. Yeah, you can stand in front of the mirror and tell yourselves 10 times Aham Brahmasmi. precisely because you know that you look rotten. And you already know what view your prospective date is going to hold of you. Come on, buck up. Ish Upanishad. That's not what spirituality is about. Hmm?
So, being without end or being infinite then is not about being vast. That's what you're saying.
It is about being unthinkable. You call yourself small only when firstly you think about yourself. Spirituality says you are someone who cannot be thought of. So don't hold any ideas about yourself. Neither are you small and you are not even big. Bigness is as small an idea as smallness. Every idea is small, bounded by the limits of your own personal perception.
I have to admit that I'm a bit thrown this morning. We're asked to name three things that things that make me not okay. So is this starting point the wrong starting point? Because we're starting with the mind and all that. Nevertheless, after doing this, I'm thrown. It's almost as if spirituality is a motivation I can get back, but then I'm starting to see it as maybe as a motivational type thing. So I admit that this is where I am right now.
Wonderful. Remember, whenever you would observe, you would only observe the mind. There is nothing else available for observation. If you ever say that you are able to observe the truth, then it's just like Jhini Maya masquerading as Brahm yesterday. Truth is not available for observation. Truth is the ground of all observation. So of course, whenever you start, you have to start with nothing else but the mind. Doesn't matter whether your mind says you are awesome or awful. It's the mind. So you could as well write down how awful you are, this side, and that side could write down how awesome they are. Both of them are just describing the mind. As long as they are describing the mind honestly, it is all right. Both sides would then converge to this session. Both of them at some point would come together to this point when this session is possible.
Sorry, I'm not hearing you.
Where exactly are you missing? Doesn't matter what kind of concept it is. You can start with it. It might be the most obviously false concept, and it might be the most hallowed concept. If it exists in the mind it is a befitting place to start from. It could be therefore a concept of awesomeness or awfulness. It could be a concept of your personal glory or your personal inglory. You can start from there. Start from there and keep moving to its root. And you will arrive to this point, the point of this session, the point where someone, something would be laid open to you. It's like holding a knitted fabric in your hand. It is one thread. You know that? A knitted fabric is just one single thread. Doesn't matter where you catch that thread from. You can start from anywhere. If you start unraveling, soon you will find that the entire thing is unraveled. Your beginning point does not matter. It's all one single thread. So catch hold of any concept randomly, whatever comes to your mind, whatever is occupying you currently, and remain honest with it. Keep holding on to it. And soon the entire fabric, the total obfuscation will be laid bare open, cleared out. That's why it's so easy, and that's why it's so obvious and available. You can start from anywhere. It's like starting from any leaf of the tree. You can start from any particular leaf that is closest to you. And if you remain with it, you will reach the root. You don't have to be selective about the leaf. Any leaf is all right. Remain with it and you will reach the root. Good ideas, bad ideas, happiness, sorrowness, bigness, smallness, whatsoever is clouding the sky, touch it, feel it, watch it, be with it.
I think I used to pull it into the self, its source.
Do you know the source?
I did.
It's like being a tiny droplet in the depths of an immense ocean, and thinking of pulling things outside the ocean into the ocean. What power do you have? Are you required to be a mediating agency?
Or can I just recognize it as coming from the source?
Even the recognition is not yours. When the recognition is, you are really not there. When you recognize something as coming from the source, then neither is there recognition nor is there source, there is only ideation. The source is a very, very bad word, you know. God must be an unmentionable word. God is when you realize that one is not even qualified to utter the word God. little droplet is more qualified to talk of the Pacific Ocean than we are to talk of God. You don't have to do anything. You just stay with your own little world. Staying with your own little world, you have now allowed the really big to come upon you. Surrender is nothing but an admission of your little boundaries. I see, I admit that I am always constrained within boundaries. That's the maximum you can see, realize, recognize. God is not someone you can recognize. Watch your world, watch your thoughts. Watch the littleness and watch the little bigness as well. Little littleness and little bigness. Watch all these. Stay with them. And don't venture out to guess and fantasize about the source. That's not a place meant for you. Those territories are not safe. You might return unharmed. That's the biggest harm that can happen to you. You might return home stronger. That's the biggest harm that can happen to you. The God idea is a very empowering idea. That is the biggest harm that can happen to you. The God idea enables you to do a lot. That's the biggest harm that can happen to you. Don't let that harm come upon you. That harm will come in the shape of empowerment. That harm will come in the shape of sureness, security, knowledge, self-assurance.
So I pushed my own buttons, and I can see. I think I'm looking at. I'm not sure I'm looking at something that is the deepest, really rooted in conditioning, probably, and stuff like that. But I can see boundaries here. This maybe is some type of concept. I don't know. This I can see.
Wonderful. Wonderful. See, trying to...
I'm lucky to have this, maybe.
Yes, of course. Trying to see God is like trying to see ultraviolet rays or infrared spectrum. Trying to listen to God is like trying to hear frequencies of 5 hertz or 50,000 hertz. If you say that you are hearing sounds at 50,000 hertz, you are mad. Therefore, all the people who talk to God and listen to God and watch God are exactly that, mad. There is something seriously troublesome about them. If you walk into a doctor's and claim that your eyes have infrared vision, he will take you to another department, psychiatry. That's the thing with all the God watchers and God listeners. You are doing something that you are not equipped to do. And if you claim that you are indeed doing that, then you better be found with the psychiatrist.
So what do you mean by observing?
Observe that which is within the visible spectrum. And the visible spectrum is such a narrow percentage of the total spectrum. So watch your little world within your little capacities, and that is enough. That is enough.